Wow, this is such a funny window into just random Red Bulls fans out in the world. Like somebody says, honestly, we're having such a horrible season, frowny emoji. But then I can't even tell who they're talking about. And then someone says, Red Bulls always suck, crying, laughing. And someone named French Chicken responds, no, we don't. Remember BWP and Henri days?
YouTube comments might be an unmined source of fantastic content.
These highlights are simply atrocious. Look so hurriedly put together. How can we attract new fans to the sport/league if we do not create international standard highlights?
That's good shit.
It's Alex! And I can get my satisfaction.
It's episode 248, The View from 202. After 2 weeks, or 2 games in a week of action for the Red Bulls, a loss away to Seattle and a win away in Miami, we're back to talk about our little away trip, or the Red Bulls away trip, where we get 3 points. Kind of a ho-hum trip, to be honest. I don't know, but it's same configuration for us here. 3 of us in person. Me, Peaches, Cork in person, and Sam remote. Sam, how's it going? What is there a leg update, an Achilles update?
Honestly, 4 more weeks until I'm back in person. But that's it. Much of the same.
Thank you for the very accurate injury report. We're not used to that.
Yeah, we're really thrown off by that.
4 weeks. Wow.
To the Red Bull fandom to provide a rare, honest update.
I'll just put you down as out (parentheses unavailable) again.
Manager's decision.
Yeah, it's actually a secret PFA cocaine suspension. So
unhealthy scratch.
Right. Yeah.
Well, wonderful. Something to look forward to. Seattle and Miami. Loss in Seattle and a win in Miami. And the Rebels actually have claimed a bit of a scalp this week, as our win in Miami is the last game that Phil Neville will ever see in Miami, unless maybe he gets a Lampard thing and comes back in a couple years. Who knows?
Oh wow, that'd be sick.
Well, Sam actually, you were on the trip out to Miami, right? Like you were seeing your doctor who was giving you totally legal hormones to recover, right?
Horse placenta.
Yeah, no, of
yeah,
course.
Exactly. That's where you were.
Right.
But the Rebels have now sorghummed someone else, which feels good. But
have we done that this season already, or is it just like
gotten someone fired?
Yeah.
What's I actually.
So let's say we
who was
start doing the death knocking.
Who was the one
meme?
person who got fired right before Struber? Fuck.
If only we were live, I would solicit somebody to look this up for us.
Yeah.
But Montreal still has
If only I
Lasada.
had a phone sitting right next to me.
Yeah. And DC still has Rooney. Oh, Chicago fired their manager,
right,
didn't
Anderson.
they? Was
Yeah.
that before
Was that
or
after
after
us?
Yeah, I
It
think
was right
after.
before, I think.
Oh.
But
Close enough.
no, we didn't we play them right before that? Let's just do.
Yeah, maybe we are just getting rid of all the managers.
Our 3 minutes of research we do per episode.
Yeah,
Let's get that
usually,
out of
yeah.
the way.
Let's do our FootMob browsing. It always feels good to do some FootMob browsing
The audience
live.
loves it.
Yeah, it's the kind of content you really want.
We drew with Chicago. We drew Chicago in Chicago on April 29th.
That would be, I guess, a key ingredient that we didn't even beat them.
Right.
So, yeah.
We drew Chicago on April 29th, and Ezra Hendrickson was fired when?
We beat City, but Cushing is still around. Although, the listeners may have seen the video making the rounds of James Sands being held to task for City's continued poor form, which is, I have to confess, I've not watched it with the volume on. I can't bring myself to do
Pretty
it.
painful.
It's much worse with the volume on.
I just really enjoy the palpable sense of like everyone not really being sure what they're actually supposed to be doing. Like they're all just kind of going through the motions of something they've seen on a Twitter video before.
Yeah. Sands is just kind of like has a squint in his eye and is like vaguely nodding, but also not really sure what's going on.
It's like he's there to watch something else happen and has forgotten that he's one of the main actors in this. And then the one like clip I did stand to listen to before turning it off was like one of the City supporters being like, it's got to be better, right? Like you're supposed to be the captain, right? And is just like vamping desperately. It's like what's going on here? What did you think? And whose idea was that?
Well, and my thing is that like it seems like every team, I'm going to go ahead and say, I mean, kind of a copycat thing after, I mean, I guess Galaxy was kind of protesting around the same time that Red Bulls were.
Yeah.
Whereas even in that situation, you can probably say Red Bull's more justified in doing a full-on formal protest of the club based on what happened in April. But, even on top of being in last place. But it seems like every last few weeks, I mean, I guess some of it was like maybe Open Cup eliminations, which, Jesus Christ, fucking first round of the Open Cup or whatever, who cares? And, it seems like every team around the league is having these confrontations where the players feel obliged to go talk to their respective South wards or whatever, their supporters section. And the supporters section people, obviously the most well-balanced people in any fan base are just like either like cussing him out or like the guy in Toronto like threw a tuba at K or whatever that shit was.
Oh, I forgot about that.
It just feels like, and there was another one besides City the other night. Oh, I think it was Miami, where they were expected to go, have like, this Serie A style, like ultras convo. And it's just like, honestly, man, like it's just part of how, the creep of cosplay has gotten back into the league a little.
Yeah. Like, I think there probably is some copying of the Milan thing. Right.
Totally.
Which is probably the main instigator, but couldn't be me.
Red Bulls didn't even do anything with that. Mind you, it's because the manager who we were trying to agitate out didn't give a flying fuck about what anybody here thought. But
there was that brief moment where Omir came to the supporters, but thankfully everyone has good enough conscience not to release a video of that
if Gerhard
publicly.
had just walked over to the South Ward and just like cupped his ear to everyone, like
that'd been kind of sick.
Been like,
if he just owned it a little, that's true.
But
that is true.
Not. This is like a key problem of what was preventing any sort of ironic or not appreciation of the guy.
Well, on that note, Chicago fired Ezra Hendrickson on May 8th, so a solid like week and a half after we talked.
I'm glad I vamped long enough for that information to be found. This is really a test of our skills. But lo and behold, we did not deliver a similar fate to Seattle. As you may remember, Seattle was on a bit of a skid before playing us. It's not a perfect comparison because Seattle was still in second place before we kicked off. So I think they just kind of got back to their more standard ways by dealing us a 1-0 loss at their home.
But as we all know, Western Conference results are non-canonical. So
kinda, yeah.
That said, it still is nice to play them for the first time in 4 years, like we were talking about last week.
Yeah, and it was a pretty fitting kind of display of where the two clubs are at, I guess. And I mean, the thing that stuck out to me about Seattle, which it's not a surprise about Seattle, it's how they've been set up for a while, pretty much their whole history under two, very MLS coaches, Schmidt and Schmetzer, where we've talked a lot this year about turning on some of the other MLS games and seeing, even pretty bad teams, pretty mid teams, just do basic combination and passing and just kind of intuitive soccer activity. And Seattle is kind of the like maximal version of that. That's kind of their club identity, is that they are going to put out the most conventional, either like 4-4-2 or 4-2-3-1, with, pretty obvious players set up in obvious positions to do what they do and combine with each other in pretty intuitive ways, and it works generally if you do it sensibly and maintain a good collection of personnel. And this game was an example of that. Seattle was playing a pretty deep 4-man back line and keeping things tight. It was the first game in a while where Red Bulls haven't completely blown the other team out of the water shots wise. And mind you, maybe it was a game where tactically they were trying to keep things a little more in the tank, preparing for long midweek trip to Miami. But I'd say all in all, based on my kind of general little diagnosis of Seattle there and what you're up against, like Brit said, even a slumping version of Seattle is still probably the toughest team in all of MLS I guess I should say the team in MLS you expect a win least at to go to a theme we touch on a lot. Kind of the most excusable 1-0 road loss you could probably have. And, we talked about how it was kind of like an interesting status check of the two biggest clubs, but, it was a pretty fitting example of, 1-0 being just kind of a muted version of where both those clubs are at this moment.
A little bit of a justified result, almost, kind of the way you look at the game.
This ended up being pretty true to form for what we said might happen last week. Well, it wasn't even what we said, it wasn't really a prediction. It was just kind of looking at the fixture and going, been a while since we dropped a game. It might just happen.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
to drop.
It's like, not going to throw.
Now that we're not dropping points every single week.
Right.
It's a little more just like, there's going to be games like this.
But yeah, I mean, I even, I thought we looked pretty respectable, all things considered, too, in that game.
Yeah, it wasn't like we got blown out, obviously.
Yeah, so it was one of those cases where, I didn't even, like we were saying last week, it was kind of the house money game, but, traditionally it would have been kind of a benchmarking game, but I think it turned out to be like, we benchmark this team to say that we're actually not that bad, but we're also not like, an exceptional team in that regard.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of this, that I was actually surprised. Pleasantly surprised sounds too loaded, but I'll just say I was surprised that Nico Lodero is still there at Seattle. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Kind of assumed he would have left or something by now. But I also find it kind of fitting, or it makes sense that they picked up Albert Rusnak as well from RSL. Seems like kind of a Seattle thing to do to get another team's key player on a free.
Last year it was kind of like the biggest kind of flex in MLS roster building since I would say that last Bruce Arena year at the Galaxy, where he got like Cole and De Jong and like Van Dam and all those guys to play on like TAM contracts before the whole league was on TAM contracts. Mm-hmm. But bringing in Rusnak, I don't know I'm not sure if he's a DP or a TAM guy or not, but it was very much just like, we're going to go to another MLS club in our conference and take their best player and make him our second tier guy. That's what big clubs do. And as we've kind of talked about, Seattle acts like a big club, which is kind of rare in MLS. So more power to them.
Personnel wise for us, it is sort of, the thing I'm hesitating to say is like whether this is a typical or like a first team lineup. I would say this is a lineup that should look familiar to Red Bulls fans if you've been paying attention the last month. There's some continuity here. We have Drew Yearwood starting sort of in that advanced assisting attacking role underneath the striker. In this game, Dante Van Zaire.
If we're gonna have to be respectably pronouncing his name.
Van Zaire started up top, played
Which
only
we don't
46
have to.
minutes.
If
It's
it's
true.
true.
We pronounced Klimala correctly for all those years and got nothing in return. So maybe we'll intentionally, And then Tom Barlow starts on the wing which is an interesting pattern that carries across both of these games. I know, Cork, you've been referring to this as the Drillo-Olsen deployment. Have you explained that on the show?
Explain to the folks at home.
Yeah, explain to the folks at home, Drillo.
Oh, yeah, Drillo Olsen, Egil Olsen, or Egil. I'm not sure. But was the Norwegian national team coach in the 90s who was notorious for playing the most extreme version of long ball you could possibly play. Now, unlike the extreme science fair tactics that we dealt with on a club level here for the last few years at New York Red Bulls, Egil Olsen was dealing with a Norway team that he wanted to compete with some of the top talents in the world, and Norway obviously being a small country with a limited talent pool, you need to find some sort of ace in the hole to pull that off, and his way was to play just aggressive one-track long ball, and part of that was playing your big, tall target striker on the wing to collect huge switches and stuff like that. And that's not necessarily how Barlow has been playing in these games, but I still think it's just an interesting, unconventional way of using a player. And it's interesting that Barlow was never really used this way under Struber, considering how much Struber seemed to like Barlow and appreciate the dimensions that he brought to the game. It's interesting that these dimensions have only been deployed this way once Lesane has started taking over. And maybe some of it is the personnel stretch, but then Luquinhas has been back in those games, so that's already one more winger than the team has been carrying for Lesane's tenure as it is so far.
Yeah,
and it's just the way it's working out. Like I said, it's less the 90s Norway style, which, by the way, had Drillo's fame, just to give him his credit, that it's not just bullshit, that he actually literally beat Brazil in the World Cup with that style of play. But anyway, now that you've got your Drillo juice in, it's a little different the way Barlow is playing. This is a little bit more with the Miami game fresh in my head from last night, but it's a situation where he's playing on the wing in this kind of 4-2-2-2 or 4-4-2 setup, with Burke and Van Zer kind of also being spread out very wide in the forward roles. And again, this also repeats to where it's bizarre that this never really happened under Struber, considering how much Struber valued overloads on the wings, is that the forwards and Barlow are sort of dovetailing and overlapping in the wide areas up in the final third, and it's actually creating danger, unlike we ever really saw from those areas of the field under Struber, despite how much he supposedly built his attack around that. But
yeah, I wonder if that's one of those, like the Barlow on the wider area thing is one of those things that Troy kept in his back pocket during the Struber years, or maybe even brought it up to Gerhard and got yelled at it for it or whatever. But I do think it's interesting that he's the way that he's being deployed, almost more like a traditional winger at times,
right?
Which
he's certainly quick, and in his touch, I feel like his touch is better than people give him credit for.
Yeah.
It's just more the decision making and awareness where he falls short.
Or the second touch is usually
kind of that too.
Right.
But he's capable of some nifty little dribbles and touches sometimes.
Right, which is kind of like, I think he gets by people maybe by surprise sometimes.
Right.
But yeah, his skill set's oddly suited to playing the role he's playing right now, which I found interesting. But maybe that's just also a product of everyone playing a little bit more naturally and more freely anyway. Who knows?
Yeah, I think we could, if we want, it might be easier just to open it up to also include this Miami game while we're talking about this kind of stuff. Because I think, to me, it's interesting. Part of it is a result of the uneven but improving fitness of the squad, where the team's had good form and been shown more coherency, but yet I'm still not totally sure what like our front four looks like,
Right.
And it could be different in a month. I kind of expect it to look different in a month, and this sort of has been a transitional period. And one interesting part of it as well. Well, one is the thing that I mentioned a minute ago is Yearwood has been playing that sort of advanced midfield role, which is something that I have been assuming is sort of temporary until we get everyone back up to fitness, and maybe Frankie gets back to full fitness, Morgan comes back, and both Frankie and Lewis Morgan do make appearances against Miami, but also stuff like Daniel Edelman returning from youth national team, which would give us another option in midfield. That could tumble some dominoes in that direction too. I've been assuming that Yearwood won't be doing that long term, but hey, I've made those kind of assumptions about this team recently, and that's not been true. The other factor is that we've got 2 more games worth of tape here to assess Dante Van Zier, and weird player. I think the assessment kind of carries through, or we can extend our assessment from earlier in the season, that if he's not hitting a ball on a volley, he doesn't
really contribute much.
Yeah, it's been an interesting period where the team form has improved, and he's been able to be pretty ineffectual while flying under the radar. And our goals are still coming from different sources other than him. It is kind of fascinating at how really the one thing he's good at is hitting a ball on a volley, and really struggles to connect or seemingly dribble or even shoot the ball from not on a volley throughout the game. And I don't know. It feels unclear to me that he might actually be a long-term answer up top for us.
Well, it's funny because, like I said last week too, he does manage to be positionally effective enough where he's getting or receiving the ball in a lot of places. So,
Well, unlike previous strikers at this club the last few years, he's actually been set up in a 2-striker formation where he can actually hang out on back posts sometimes.
Yeah, that's also true.
Which no striker has been able to do since early 2021. So I'm hesitant to even give him credit there.
No, sure, but to give him the benefit of the doubt there, even it's interesting that he is involved, but he's ineffective, because I feel like there's a lot of times where you see him, this is a really dangerous break. He is there. He's ready to receive the ball. Either he takes a bad touch, or maybe he has a good touch and then tries to do a square ball to someone who's running along, misses that, and it leads to a chance in the Miami game, for example, which, those kinds of things add up to actually being detrimental to the team. But, if it doesn't click, like we're also saying, he's had time to be fit, he should have the touch by now, based on how much time he's been just kind of training. So it's weird because I don't know if these things don't seem chemistry related. He's in the right places. They just kind of
it seems like a skill issue.
He even seems to have good link up with the players and them knowing where he's going to be. Right? He just doesn't have the goods.
He's quite slow. Let's be honest, for a diminutive striker in a team that builds its entire identity around long balls and verticality, he is not nearly mobile enough.
And maybe he can be a contributor. I don't think any of us are making a final verdict here, but so far it really does not seem like he's going to be the guy, and it's not our money that they spent $5 million of, but it just kind of seems baffling that you would look at this guy and be like, oh yeah, this is going to be what is our centerpiece or put us over the top. And hey, maybe that's not what they were considering him as, but that's kind of how he was presented and sold. Interestingly enough, the social media team decided to tweet out a photo of him after our win on Saturday, even though he was not really involved and was subbed off at the half. So I don't know.
Which is the thing you do when you have I guess a star player, right? You just kind of post them, but this is not this is just reading the room poorly.
Yeah. It's I don't know. When you're watching this team, when I watch this team, I'm still thinking oh, maybe there's another protagonist that could come in here. Like there's still kind of a room for another big personality, and as listeners may know, we kind of thought that at least personality and presence wise and skill wise that Klimala had the potential, and in many ways is already filling that role. Don't get that from Van Zier so far, but
Definitely get it from Corey Burke and his Instagram.
Yeah, no, Corey Burke, I think the stock in Corey Burke is still high, but it's also unclear to me how much we should expect him to be playing. I don't know. I mean, it feels like all of our attacking players are like platoon players at this point. And I don't know if that's just situational or if that's just kind of how it's going to be for the rest of the season.
And they're all supposed to be kind of like our marquee players, all of these attacking players.
I guess I was never sure how to view Burke being brought in.
Well, I guess not like, I didn't even just mean Burke, but I mean like Luquinhas, Morgan, Burke. Like when we have all of them, they're all kind of like supposedly
It was just generally a really good idea to set the team up in the taste of and cater to the whims of a manager who was now openly planning to leave.
Yeah,
I think that was just such great club management that was going on the last year that has made that situation so much more clear than it was before.
I wonder what Fabio's up to.
Yeah.
Ashley Fletcher, what's he doing?
Yeah. Bringing back Elias Manuel is also
supposedly Fabio, like Struber, actually wanted Fabio back, and that was one of the toys that he couldn't get and started throwing the rest of them out of the pram.
Yeah, Manuel is an interesting shout too, because he's been kind of getting close, but he also hasn't really had it either.
Yeah. Also, we spent not a ton of money, but we spent like
Enough,
$2 million.
yeah.
$2 million to bring Manuel in,
And just not really much there.
I can't tell if the idea was for him to be a starter either, too, right?
It seems like he was the first post Klimala and was very much, literally replaced Klimala in the lineup for the last month or two of the season last year and didn't provide any increased output and has now been kind of discarded. Yeah, go ahead, Sam.
I was gonna say, I truly did not miss him at all in the Miami game. It was nice because we ended up playing everybody else, right? Barlow, Van Zier, and Burke, and Carmona, Yearwood. That was the in
attacker
Morgan,
midfield,
as like our kind of attack-minded players. It was nice to I get kind of tired of his whole like shtick on the field sometimes, in the same way that I get frustrated with Barlow.
Yeah, Elias Manuel is kind of like a step ahead of everything, if that makes sense. He's always running too fast when the rhythm is not really there. If I can kind of
he's always going
wax
route one.
poetic about what I think the gist of his problem is.
I kind of get what you mean.
Yeah.
It's like you have that one player in the band who always rushes, and he's like, nah.
Yeah, he always feels in a rush. That's a good word to use.
It's kind of how his chance against Seattle felt too. Like I think it was the right move. This is the one where he latches onto a ball and was it Tolkien who knocked it in? I don't know. He latched onto a ball and was saved by Fry. He put it on target, but I think it was probably the right decision and everything to go for a shot on goal, but it did feel rushed. It I never was too.
It felt like
confident.
he had time to take a touch, and I disagreed with you, but it definitely felt like he had time to take a beat, which is like a different thing.
I don't know. It just felt like it was. He could have been. At no point was I really like, oh yeah, this is.
He doesn't seem
going in.
composed ever, and I said this from the beginning. It's like Manuel. Like when I see him, like if he can manage to gain composure and gain the tempo, like I was saying this last year, maybe he can be like a lot more dangerous, but he still hasn't really seemed to get into that groove.
I think he has potential. I mean, we did, like you said, we did spend $2 million on him, which is not cheap by certainly this club standards and even the league standards still these days. But I think he has potential, and he's the kind of guy where, say this is like 2018 or any year where the rest of the squad is really strong and set up. He could be a good complementary rotation. Carlos Rivas, kind of striker, but alas.
But
he's been expected to kind of carry a lot of the load for the last calendar year and hasn't been up to the task, unfortunately.
But they're like I would say like Carlos Rivas, but like potentially with a little bit more of an upside, and
Well, true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Rivas didn't really work out beyond, kind of a 6 month time frame. That's why we love him.
right.
But
But
just
even
using that brief euphoria as a reference point.
yeah, but I'm using this
Yeah.
as an opportunity to take a hot take for the sake of having a hot take. But I feel like Manuel's ceiling is arguably higher than Van Zier's is.
Could be.
Yeah, I mean, he is younger, right?
Right.
Yeah.
The Rivas shout that does remind me that I do think, thinking of Dante's game and limitations as well, that if we signed a guy like Dante, just like a kind of dumb, problematic white boy who like seemingly the only thing he can do is hit a ball on the volley, like in 2018 that would have been potential cult classic material.
Yeah.
But now it's like supposed to be the linchpin of all the hopes. He's just the next big guy. The dude just scores goals, apparently.
He really is kind of like, I kind of felt this way at the time when he was signed. He's an underwhelming signing even for this club in 2013 or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, the way you put it just now, Brit, kind of popped that out for me even more, where it's just like, yeah, this is not the guy who you have as maybe he's a guy who's worth signing in some context,
Yeah.
but not as your main bell cow kind of centerpiece attacker, not the final piece of a puzzle that Struber was supposedly putting together. I mean, it's just, very, very awkward squad building. And we'll just have to see what happens from here.
Bizarro, sinister Carlos Rivas, but yeah, maybe more like his resume isn't that much different than Daniel Royer's before he came over here, right? I mean, Royer was a little older, I don't know, but I guess Royer kind of had sputtered out a bit at Midtjylland.
One Austria cap versus one Belgium cap.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah, he really is kind of like a Royer profile player when we definitely needed a bit more.
Oh, Cork, you were saying 2013.
Especially if we were going to ditch Klimala, which is the whole other context of this. But yeah, go ahead.
You're saying 2013, and now, Jochen, I will be happy if you make amends by signing the right Belgian superstar. Eden Hazard would be sick for the New York Red Bulls.
Oh, you're not going to say Lukaku?
Oh, I mean, no, I still have qualms about Lukaku from his last Chelsea stint.
Lukaku, he might sign for Houston now, given the news. So, but maybe on a more upbeat note, we can also focus on the guys who've come back to health and guys who've been performing well in the last 2 weeks. I think I keep on saying 2 weeks. You know what I mean? Last 2 games.
Match days.
Yeah,
team of the match day. They don't even call it team of the week anymore.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Team of the match day.
Like, was someone on their case about that?
Maybe, yeah.
The
Lionel
AP
Hutz
style
sued them
guy
for false
was
advertising.
banging down their door.
Yeah, exactly.
Peter Stroud has continued to play well, I think. Before we started recording, we watched his YouTube video on the team account about cooking, mostly, kind of, and
he's no Mark Canna when it comes when it comes to being a foodie New York athlete.
Thank you.
But
we'll leave it there. That's the nicest way to put it. But he's a hell of a midfielder, though, I think, and I think that's a continuing development. Could be an interesting problem, a good problem to have when Daniel Edelman comes back from the war, whenever that is. But Frankie Maya played at half. He played 45 minutes.
Good player.
Pretty good.
Good player.
Yeah.
Good to have him back in the team.
I think he played it still, more of his more reserved position. I'm still not ruling out him playing further up the field. And that,
he certainly is. I mean, as I kind of mentioned on Twitter, even if he's not really a traditional sort of ball holding 10, he is one of the few players in the team, and it's kind of a different way than Yearwood does it, but guy who will run into the final third and support the attack. And specifically the way Amaya can do it better than anybody else in the team is, carrying the ball. Not even as much dribbling as much as just, having the, gumption and engine to just carry it past guys into some danger in the final third. I think the team's been missing that considerably whenever he's not on the field going back to last summer.
Yeah. And I think in a different way, we see Lucchinius deliver a bit of that this week as well. He's not as new to the lineup. Although he still came back to fitness pretty recently. But he starts this game and he basically creates the goal against Miami.
Good run.
And I think a good example of how you can, you create your own luck a bit sometimes. Like the final touch on that sequence is kind of a lucky bounce off of DeAndre Yedlin as he's dribbling through. But the only way you get those bounces is by trying, or like the wall at Red Hook Sluggers reminds us, don't let the fear of striking out prevent you from swinging. It's something like that. I have a selfie with it. I'll go look on my Instagram.
That's your, but that's your also your DSA league kind of, you make it through the runs just by getting a lot of lucky bounces.
Absolutely.
Sometimes.
And then you can always just foul someone later. It's fine. But yeah, so I think Lucchinius had looked pretty good even outside of that. I think my cautious optimism that he could only go up, I'm feeling good about that. I think that against Miami was a good example of how maybe him getting a little bit closer to the other players in the final third and the other players being able to pinch in and kind of combine a little bit more can unlock a little bit of potential in our game. I think also it's a good example of how just kind of those dribbling runs that he made pull in defenders and create space for other guys, for just giving a little bit of doubt and indecision to the defending players. Ultimately, we had like 3 players who were able to stare at that rebound with Miami's defense totally falling asleep, and it was Barlow who tucked it away. Although I have to say, I saw that, my immediate thought after this goal was, despite it being a tap-in, I don't know if I can actually count this goal on the tap-in meter, because it's not what we mean, is it?
Yeah.
It's still kind of a little bit of hero
It's
ball.
A rebound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a good illustrative example. Broken play. Yeah. An illustrative example of what we're talking about with the tap-in meter this season, that we're talking really more about carving a team apart and just having a
guy set up to just hit an empty net,
rather than hero ball, which it kind of still was from Lucchinius. But
that was a game with a lot of chances, but arguably that's how Struber would have wanted to win were he still manager,
Oh yeah, that's true.
Just having a Lucchinius go and do something,
and then hoping
and just an ugly broken goal.
Yeah,
that is funny. Yeah, that's true. Although he didn't know how to let him do that for him.
Exactly.
Did he?
I mean, it's exactly. It is May, and I guess June now, but that was the exact moment of Lucchinius fever last year. The short window where he was allowed to play.
Yeah. Maybe he's like Pride Month Mark Canna.
Yeah.
Oh my God, don't let Lucchinius know. He's going to freak out.
Oh God. Yeah.
He's crying and shaking.
Where was he on 1-5?
Yeah. Well, Lucchinius did give way to none other than Lewis Morgan. Newly blonde Lewis Morgan.
Silver,
sorry. Yeah. Platinum. And he's back. Last year's leading goal scorer.
Looking like a Glasgow club casualty of the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, I think the product of a great footballer.
Oh yeah, totally. It's certainly a persona to adopt.
Not much really to comment on, but I'm just glad he's back. CCJ rotated in, played the second half of this game. I gotta say, we, of course, I'll just say I won't say we. Also, I have been a bit of a skeptic, you could say, or I've been confused about CCJ, that's for sure. But he looked good this game, and part of me is wondering maybe if just a little bit of rotation can help. And he seemed to play more limited and like into his role. Like
he's playing as a dual, whether you want to call it a dual 8 or a dual 6, at the back of the 4-4-2 or 4-2-2-2, and as I've been adamant about for basically his entire tenure at the club, that's where he needs to be. He needs to be at the base of midfield, behind play, not in the middle of things. And you can see some of his vision and striking ability and some of the line-breaking passes he was able to pull off from those spaces.
Yeah, the initial ball into Lucanius for the goal was a great measured pass that he took a moment and just glanced up very quickly and found it. And I think really good stuff. I do think he does better when he's playing more to his strengths in that kind of more limited role. And it wouldn't surprise me if he plays somewhere else at a higher level later to see him flourish even more as like fitting into a specific part of a system and a cog.
I guess we do. I don't think it was news last episode
I don't think we've talked
Toulouse of Ligue 1 is apparently in for him.
Yeah, and because I do think the parts where he frustrates me more is when he's kind of given... I don't know how much it's instruction sometimes versus sort of just drifting and having like that sort of mission creep towards doing a little bit of everything, where I think that's where his game suffers a little bit, where he's just kind of all over the place. But... it's I guess maybe we're on the regular recurring schedule again for a CCJ transfer rumor. Seems like every summer we get something, but he's still here. My reaction is, I think he's been a good servant to the club, but if we're transferred him out, it would make a lot of sense right now. Could create some room.
23?
Sounds right.
Yeah, he's been here forever.
23.
And he's only 23, so...
Yeah. But if we transferred him out with the emergence of Stroud and Edelman and Amaya getting back to fitness and Yearwood no longer being in the Struber doghouse, it could make a lot of sense. It could create room for both Stroud and Edelman to play full-time once Edelman gets back, or close to full-time. And I think also if he left... it could force management, whether that's, the sporting director or Troy in their different capacities, to acknowledge that we need a more out-and-out creative presence in the midfield instead of sort of relying on CCJ's jack-of-all-trades, Swiss Army knife kind of deal. And I think it could be a step in the right direction, and that's not at all to dismiss him as a player. I do think he's of course, a quality player. But we'll see if it actually happens. I mean, it's getting pretty late into his contract now at this point. Although, did he sign an extension?
I don't think he did. I think it's if he did, it's not clear. And supposedly, this is the last year of his contract, and something needs to happen. Something needs to break.
Yeah. So you are hoping to replace him with 40-year-old Lucas Podolski.
Well, I feel like we've already signed him. Yeah. And his name is Dante Vanzer. Which hilarious bit really is if you just sign. It's kind of like when we signed Juninho Pernambuco,
Yeah.
But he can't even hit set pieces because, as we've seen, Dante can't even hit a penalty. We should see, how like in football, how you still technically have the option to do a drop kick if you want. We should just like dig through the rule book to see if we're actually allowed to have somebody just like toss the ball up in the air on a penalty so Dante could volley it. Maybe that's still in there for some reason. Who knows?
Dante's only contact practice with a soccer ball was at Brooklyn Sluggers.
I was just going to say they should do soft toss of a soccer ball for volley practice.
It's going to be like
Sluggers.
old-timey baseball rules where you can request a high volley or a low volley.
Yeah.
This also does put into context his ridiculous bicycle attempt after saying the only way he can hit it. It's like, he's like, well, I need a goal real bad right now. Know that it's not going to happen any other way. But yeah. Well,
I not to give him too much credit, not to empathize with him too much, but as somebody who's weirdly good at volleys, but not pretty much any of the other soccer technical skills, I solidarity in that respect.
Dutch solidarity. Yeah. Just the worst kind. Oh my God. Well, Anything else about this Seattle and Miami games? It was a hard week to follow. On it, the Miami game, I don't know. It was hump day, Wednesday. Saturday against Seattle, though, that was
at 10:30 on our time.
That was
if you're like us and live on the East Coast.
Yeah, that was rough. I kind of, I don't know.
Yeah, I felt really bad for all of our viewers in Europe who were trying to watch that game.
Yeah, that was a tough one.
Well, all of our viewers were at the club, obviously, listening. I did discover that it's definitely just that Apple TV is throttling Chrome in particular. I've had the worst time trying to watch the game.
Have you tried it on Edge?
I tried it on Firefox and it worked fine, which explains a lot. Because and anything when I tried a Chromecast or anything, it's just specifically fucking up with that.
Well, listen to the listeners. If you're trying to watch the next week's game on Apple TV, although it's at home, you should watch it on our sponsor, Opera GX, the gamers browser.
Is that your real life
No.
sponsor? Oh, okay.
No.
I was gonna say we can't be mixing in real life sponsors here. We should try to stream while at the game, see how much of a delay it is.
Yeah.
I have had that thought sitting down at the arena of like I'll get a notification that the game has started. I'm like, oh god, did something happen? I'm like, no, I'm fucking watching the game directly.
I remember this distinct thought. Did I just get something spoiled? Like I can't. I am the delay.
Yeah, it's like, damn, this cart really hit. God damn. Anything else about these two games? I think we covered about as much as it deserves.
I'm surprised we got that much out of it.
Yeah,
to
they
be
weren't.
honest.
They weren't really historic in nature.
But we have moved up the table a bit from getting 3 points from 3 games.
Now there's a revenge tie against the Lions.
Orlando, yeah. And this will be 2 different teams now that we will have played twice already, which, I know that MLS isn't like the Premier League, because I'm pretty sure the Premier League makes it so that
You play every team once before cycling around.
Right. And I don't know if we used to do that once upon a time, but certainly since COVID, it's been obvious that we haven't been doing that.
At least it's not like playing New England like 3 times in a month
that was
like
brutal.
that one year.
But we've already played Montreal twice, and this will be the second time we're playing Orlando already. And right now we're in 11th place with 19 points. And humorously, City is in 6th, is beneath us now, although they have a game in hand. But Montreal and Orlando are the 2 teams right in front of us. So we have 19 points, and really, for context, the 6th place team has 21 points. So we could potentially be in like 6th place next week if we get a win and results go our way. And really looking at the table in general, I think even with our horrible start, obviously making playoffs is still within reach because you only have to get 9th place to get playoffs now. But realistically, it looks like even like 4th or 5th place is kind of on up for grabs. 4th place right now is New England with 26 points. Granted, they have a game in hand on us. Again, we have 19 points. The top 3 in the conference are Cincinnati at 36 points, so we're just running away with it right now. Nashville with 28 points, and then Philly with 27.
Since only have 1 loss, right?
Yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, they only have 1 loss. And hey, we drew them last week or 2 weeks ago, which is maybe a good temperature check, although, it was the Open Cup, not a real league game. But this is to say, that we could be climbing back to kind of a 4th place finish, was about the ceiling of where Struber's teams were anyway.
Yeah, I was just about to say, like, if this is the team that Struber had set up, for this year, kind of finally having their form balance out and get results, it's still not good enough to be in 11th.
Yeah.
But maybe they go ahead and get like 75% form or whatever for the rest of the year and actually prove that they can eclipse that. We'll see.
Yeah. But this could be a satisfying week in the standings, I guess, if we do beat Orlando, leapfrog at least one team above us on the march upwards, hopefully. Orlando's form is not great. They have 1 win in their last 5. That was a win against Miami, just like we beat. Other than that, they've drawn Atlanta, City, and Columbus. I think they gave up a last-minute equalizer to City, which is frustrating. But they've been pretty mediocre so far this year. It's their last 2 wins against Miami, like I said, and then the Galaxy back in April. So it's been a tough time for them.
But they give us a tough time pretty usually.
Every time.
Under Perea. I mean, they're a team that, I mean, they kind of want to turn every game into a bit of a scrap and tend to sit back and play pretty cagey, which doesn't really spring our game, as we know.
They've been like that since Adrian Heath, to be honest. Orlando against us, I feel like we've always had really chippy games against them for whatever reason.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a good, nice little tie. God, remember, Sasha Klestrin went there, right? That feels
That's exactly the game I was thinking of.
forever
But I don't think
ago.
Heath was the coach then. I think that was Kreis.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh, wow, Jason Kreis.
He was also fired by
Yeah, he
Miami.
also will. I hope he didn't close on a house in Miami like he did in Westchester.
Oh, he closed on 4, actually. You know,
Oh,
he
yeah?
was one of the guys that was, being interviewed in The Big Short about owning 4 different
Yeah.
houses with adjustable rate mortgages.
in Deerfield Beach.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I've said this multiple times this season, so maybe it's less credible every week, but this does feel like a week where maybe we could see some more telling lineup decisions. I mean, more guys are fit. Lewis Morgan presumably is fit after playing 45 minutes. Frankie Amaya as well. Dante Van Zer seems to be back in the rotation fully. Corey Burke, I think, maybe was getting rotated a bit, had a knock, but he's back. Andres Reyes was, I think, rested or out with a knock against Seattle, but he played against Miami, so presumably back. One thing I forgot to mention is Cameron Harper got a second yellow very late against Miami. A second yellow that looked very soft to me, I have to say. I don't think we got a good replay of it, but I don't know if it was just like persistent infringement or what. It didn't feel like a professional foul.
He had a pretty bad foul without a card, like maybe 10 minutes before that. So I feel like he was already kind of on the hot seat.
That makes sense. Because, persistent infringement kind of felt like the vibe a little bit, so it kind of felt funny, though, to get that at like the very last minute of the game. But on that note, Kyle Duncan was back. Kyle Duncan conceded the penalty that Miami missed to start the game on Wednesday. So that could provide an option out wide. But, of course, Dylan Nealis should be fit as well. Lots of options here. Anything you've got your eye on to keep an eye out for in this lineup? Anything you'd like to see? Anything you would not like to see?
I like, as much as in a vacuum, I hate the 4-2-2-2-2 or 2-2-2-2. I'm never sure in how many I've gotten in, but as much as I dislike that formation from an aesthetic level, I think it's a good setup for the way the team is trying to play and sort of transition out of this trooper zone right now. I think it's good to have guys in kind of simple, intuitive roles, and it's part of why the team is, just finding attacking patterns easier to come by recently. So I would kind of like to see, even if just for consistency's sake, I would like to see that lineup stuck with so we can start to see some kind of a base team get set in place.
So you want to see Barlow out on the wing again to start?
I don't know if I necessarily want to see that, but I do want to kind of see the 4-man back line, which is still pretty adept at, shifting into kind of a 3-man line when a player like Harper or somebody will, pushes higher up. I think, just like I said, having players in just simple soccer roles, just learning how to just literally play simple attacking soccer again is a good thing to continue. And I also think, even if no matter what formation is, I think it will be a good practice to just have the same formation a few weeks in a row and get a little bit more of a control and a little more of a base for how the team expects to play and perform week to week.
Yeah, I would like to see if that, I guess mostly if that Tom Barlow on the wing thing is like a starting thing for this team right now, which I don't think it probably is, but it feels like it's a really good stopgap right now. But I would like to see, with a fully fit attacking core, what that attacking line part looks like, right? How we line up with a fully healthy Luquinhas, Morgan, Burke, etc. Harper even.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see whether Drew Yearwood also gets deployed in that same kind of role again this week, that supporting attacking role. That said, this is the last week before an international break. We're going to have a week off in between this game or after this game. So maybe Troy might view this as sort of like the end of a certain discrete block of games where we're sort of rotating in and doing these more interim things, and we'll have more time to go back to the drawing board. So maybe we might see a couple more of these interim things. But with so many options, I don't know. We'll see. It might be a glimpse of what is yet to come. I guess it might be interesting to see if Van Zer starts. Because, as we said, he's not really impressed. I don't know why he was subbed off at halftime on Wednesday. I don't think we will ever, I don't think a manager would be honest about that. Well, depends who, I guess. But a
normal manager.
Yeah, it would seem to me that he was just kind of subbed off for just not being very good on Wednesday. So, I don't know. It doesn't feel like he's a indispensable or necessary part of the team right now. So I'll keep an eye on that. Would like to see Corey Burke start again. Would like to see how this gets mixed up by seeing Lewis Morgan from the start. Looking forward to it. I think it'll be nice to get out to the arena again. Still need to get a ticket, but I'll figure that out.
You'll find one.
Yeah. Well, anything else before we go into this big old international break?
Go USA.
Are they playing?
Nations League, man. Come on.
Oh, shit. Sorry, I've been boycotting Mark DeRosa this whole time.
Yeah, that's right.
It's gotten me in the mode. I forgot. Now that Anthony Hudson's gone, Anthony Hudson left before Mark DeRosa did. What is the world coming to?
Yeah, Qatari's nicking our manager.
Yeah. Well, something to look forward to there. All right, till then.
It's Alex!
Thank you.